Hello, hello, and welcome back to my podcast, Pulling Back the Curtain with Vinny Ali. I'm your host, Vinny Ali, as we do a deep dive into the creative mind. We're joined by Courtney once again for part three of Catching Up with Courtney.
Yes.
Now, Courtney, what were we talking about before we got rudely cut off?
Uh, Basically just God, what were we talking about? So that's how my brain goes. We were like on the break though, talking about like tribes and people and support system.
That's
So
right.
that would
So,
be a good thing to kind of hit because we both kind of have our own outside of each other,
yes,
um, kind of like cheerleaders in our
yes.
lives, basically.
Yeah, the old saying is you got to find your scene, you got to find your group.
Hmm.
And what's helpful in this creative market is that everyone is trying to be the next Joe Rogan, the next Brian Taylor Cohen, da 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 da.
The
But it's a
next
very
famous person.
yeah, but it's all a collaborative effort
Oh
to
yeah.
get better. That's why I like the hip hop game and the rap game so much, is because they help each other, but like showcasing people's talents to
Hmm.
collaborate. We are not in competition with each other. We're in competition with ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
It's like the
And
gym.
it is
Hmm.
very much like the
That's actually
gym.
advice my dad gave me. It's like you're not competing with anybody else, you're competing with
No.
yourself. And I'm like, okay.
Yes.
And that mentally just changed everything about working
Yeah.
out for me.
I mean, me and Courtney go back and forth about how everyone tries to offer us experience over money, food, credit.
Hmm.
Copy, credit, food are the three basics when it comes to film work that
Yeah.
you should be giving your participants.
Or at least offering, or like just
Something.
you want people to be comfortable. Again,
Yeah.
it is a thing of you want people to be comfortable. You want them to come back. Like, so the
Yeah.
last thing you want to do is give them an attitude and be like, oh, well, it's not like, who cares if it's not Hollywood? Who cares if it's not this massive set? The thing is
Exactly.
the vibe of the people. Like, they're
Hmm.
gonna come back. Like, I go back to Vinny because we work so well
Yes.
together. It's not just because we're friends and we're biased with each other. Like, we literally like working together.
Yeah, I mean, when I was starting in acting, they always said, be someone people want to work with.
Mm,
The be the three selling points I have as a working actor that I tell people, because people have told me this, is
hmm.
I'm loud slash articulate. I make bold choices from start to finish, and I take direction very well.
Yeah.
That's what you need to be as an actor. You got to be able
You're
to take
also
direction.
very improvisational for somebody too. Like that's why people have the comments that about you,
Yeah.
like, oh, you brought something different to the character. You brought something different to Adam that I didn't think about. And it
Yes,
really was kind of that reminder of like he's a normal
he's a
person in a
person.
supernatural situation.
If you go back and listen to the ep second episode of the podcast of Beyond the Legends,
Yes. The radio
Beyond the
drama. Yeah,
Legends, radio
yeah,
drama. We'll put the link in the description. I found that Adam had crazy situation going on. He was
yeah. Yeah.
front to front with the Jersey Devil. Of course, he's going to be a little,
And a
hesitant and
witch and
frustrating.
a immortal person. Yeah, I mean it's just
Correct.
it's funny. I just had an episode about cinematic games and stuff.
Yes, you did.
And so that was
Plug,
on We
plug.
Got Lucky. And we talked about like a lot of things, or at least I talked about a lot of things. And one of the ones that I love is Dead Space.
Yes.
Because Dead Space, the first one, the actual first one, not the remaster, but the actual first one, you are just a standalone engineer in a sea of chaos. And you're just there with your team, like there to help out. And
Yes.
that's what Adam kind of felt like when it came to the radio drama, where it's like this is
Yes.
a normal person in a
Mhm.
weird, hypothetically horrible situation that you would never think of, and now
Yeah.
you have to face it head on and act like it is totally fine
Yeah. And
and get out and escape.
exactly. I mean, if you ever read a comic book about Spider-Man or if you really watch Spider-Man, he is
Mhm.
scared out of his gourd.
Oh yeah, he's a normal kid that
He's
got in a crap situation.
Yeah, and because like if you don't do something, then the bad things happen, as he says
Mhm.
in one of his movies. And what's interesting is he uses humor, even though it's sarcastic, condescending, as a defense mechanism. That's what I brought to Adam, because Adam was like,
Yeah,
I'm fighting the Jersey Devil, I'm fighting a witch, what's going on? This is
yeah. You're all
beyond me.
alone. You can't call for help.
No, and that's the beauty of like
It's what,
sandbox
yeah,
storytelling. You are plopped in a situation and you get to figure it out.
yeah.
And that's why I enjoy about Courtney's writing, is because it was very much like, how would he react to this? How would he react to that? And I think that people tend to think that, well, plot armor. I, I know I just learned about this. I should have known it long ago, where like people can't hurt the person because of plot
Plot
XYZ
versus the person.
person. Because like, like I always say, my three rules are what do I want? What's my way? How am I gonna get it? What's cool about Adam was he is a man that has lost his faith because his daughter was taken away from him very early, and he doesn't understand why God would do this
Mm,
to him. And then he puts into a essentially a holy-esque war going on for
yeah.
a soul. And he's like, what do I do? Can I call upon the Almighty to help me with this after he's taken so much from me? Is this even surreal? Is this punishment for the way I live my life and how I've reacted to
And
things?
then
And
seeing the Jersey Devil as his own, as a kid as well,
right,
also trapped in a crap situation. And that's what's
absolutely.
so cool about writing, right?
Hmm.
And so, actually, technically, in the rewrites of my book,
Yes,
same kind of deal.
yes,
It's a thing of a man who lost his faith and then we'll
yes,
get it at the end kind of thing. But you
hmm,
have that's what I love about physical monsters, right?
yes,
Because it is like it can be a metaphor, but it can also
hmm,
be a physical thing.
for
So
sure.
I like the idea from the lore of the Jersey Devil that it was a cursed child because the wife didn't want it or
Yes,
whatever. And I'm like, well, what if it was a thing where the kid was an actual kid and then you keep seeing it in little
yeah,
bits? And that's why episode 2 exists. Episode 1 was actually it was an experimental script for my first grad school script.
yep, yep.
And
Eh,
that was like, that's why I put it in sound design. And I'm like, oh, what if I can make a like an after centuries thing of
yeah,
this?
like a modern
Actually, that
times.
was but episode 2 was the original script. And then I'm like, well, what
Hmm.
if you had a prequel? And so I
Yeah,
did the prequel of like, why does this exist? But no, finding your people,
yes,
the whole reason these stories exist is because I found really cool people. Like
yes.
I still talk to my writing mentor who's a professor
Hmm.
and doing amazing things, and like we'll always go back and forth, and he was very encouraging. Like he's pretty much the reason I went to grad school. And so I told this story before to many people, but I went in for a tour for the grad school program,
Hmm.
and so I went to his class specifically. They were doing an introduction to script writing, and he asked something, and I was like, all right, well, I'm guessed. I raised my hand. I was not expecting him to call me, but I was like, okay. And
Yeah,
then I answered the question. It was something like, oh, what makes a character, something like that. Answered it, and he's like, welcome to grad school. And I'm like, oh no, I need to be in this kind of environment. Okay, because I was in a really weird job at the time too. Like I was
yes.
second guessing my abilities. But once that happened, I'm like, I need to apply to the school. I need to go here.
That's the
So,
crazy thing. Like you'll go through situations where like you question everything,
oh
and
yeah.
your favorite phrase, "Oh my God, Vinny, I have imposter syndrome." That's your
No, it
favorite
really is.
phrase to me all
I
the
have
time.
insane imposter syndrome because of I have been told my entire life I am talented.
Yep.
Okay. I just assume people know what I do. That
Yes.
is my default.
Yes.
That's why I don't think I'm better than anybody else. If anything, I think a lot of people are better than me. Just the nature of my mindset.
Yes.
But what's really cool is that I actually it's happened this week. I had a friend of mine I met last year. I said, "Yeah, I'm having a little bit of imposter syndrome right now." He's like, "You know what's really awesome about imposter syndrome? It's usually from people who create the most amazing masterpieces of things."
Oh, for sure.
And
For
I'm
sure.
like, okay. So like, but you need moments like that. Like even I actually thank the one guy I just met this week for even just doing this because I was
Hmm.
having some insane issues with things. And he's like, you got to make the leap.
Yeah.
And I'm
That's
I'm
all it
like, I
is.
don't think you realize. And I thanked him yesterday. I'm like, I don't think you realize how much you made my day yesterday because I was venting about what was going on, and
Yeah.
I felt so out of place. And he was like, chin up, like you're. I want you to do the thing that you want to do. Like this is the most awesome time to do content creation.
Yes, it is.
Just do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes like I tell people all the time, especially since I was alone with my anorexia a lot, except for a very small smidgen of people,
Yeah.
you gotta be your own hero at the end of
Yes.
the day. It's
Yes.
not because we're waiting for things to plop in our lap. It is literally, I don't think people realize when you're in a situation, you kind of are the reason
Yeah.
why things change. Even
Yeah.
with your situation, I've seen you go up and down with your living situation. I'm like, look, just
Yeah.
do this one thing. Like, I know it's terrifying now, but I know, like, if you do that one thing, your life's gonna shift in a way you didn't expect it to.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been frustrated by my luck of like, why aren't I where I want to be? Why am I constantly coming back to this? Thing is, I've tried getting away from art and
Hmm.
creating, but it always comes back. I mean, Courtney was actually part of that. I took a year off from doing theater and I ended up performing in Othello. And then
Hmm.
I was at community college and then I ended up meeting Courtney and everybody getting back into it. And it's one of those things where like you are,
We
you
have
have
to
to be your
support each
truest
other.
self. You have to be
Yeah.
supportive. I mean, the thing is, that's nice
Even
in
if
this.
it's like the blunt, honest truth. Like
Oh,
Vinny knows
yeah.
me. Like I am
Yeah.
not a person who sugarcoats things.
You,
I don't want people to sugarcoat things with me. I am trying to be the person, and I've said this to many people, I'm trying to be the person I needed when I was at my absolute worst.
yeah. Yeah.
And that's just a part of growing up, right? I was 21
Hmm.
when this happens. I'm now 35.
Yep.
But like even in the midst of everything, like I have to remind myself like I could be my own worst enemy. Like I almost quit several times, like even in the
Yeah.
most recent year. But like you have to
No.
find your people. Now, if there's people who just suck out energy and like
Yes,
just
yes.
like there are people who feed off of your negativity.
That's
There are
correct.
people who feed off of your mentality of like, oh, because
Hmm.
it's a big like, oh, I'm worse off kind of game. That's why when Vinny and I get together and we're talking
Yes.
on the phone on a random day, it's like, we'll kind of say what's going on, and if it's a uh, this is shit or this is whatever, like we will
Correct.
go about it. But there are so many days where it's like, oh, that's so freaking awesome. I can't believe you did that. Oh, that like why would we diminish what we love to do?
No,
You
no.
have to find people who are super supportive, because even my writing guy was like, so because I gave him the first draft of the book before it was done. He's like, so do you want me to give you like a glowing review? Do you want me to do whatever? He's like, because I can do that for you. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I told him I really just want to make sure that it's working.
Yeah, that's the big
That's
thing.
that's all I care about.
Right. Does this make sense? Does
Yeah.
this work? Does this vibe? I mean, that's the biggest fear I have with doing anything creatively. I'm
Yeah.
like, does this make sense?
Yeah.
And what's nice about having Courtney is that she's been like, yeah, this she has both the audience view, fangirl view of things, and
That's
the
what you said
artist
about my
view.
cinematic games episode when you were listening to it the other day.
I sure did. She was geeking out hardcore because
Mm.
she can also see the joy that it brings the audience who we make
Hmm.
this for, and from the creative standpoint of like this makes sense, this does not make sense, and how effective it is. And
Yeah.
still sad you didn't bring in Kingdom Hearts into your story, but
I am so kind of mad that I didn't bring it up, because I actually played that game
mhm,
in one of a former relationships because they had a PlayStation, and I
that's
love that
correct.
game. Like that was
It's a
my
fantastic
comfort
game.
game. But I think it was more of like what hit me hard as
Mm,
a storyteller, but also as an
yeah.
audience person. Because like now it's very things can get very muddy with content where it's
Oh my
like
gosh,
you
yeah.
have either amazing gameplay, like that Still Wakes the Deep game that I mentioned was last year. It's through an indie game company.
Mhm.
The best freaking story I've seen in a minute, especially in a
Yes.
horror setting.
Yes.
And it's like realistic dialogue because it's Scottish
Mhm.
accents and dialogue and the cast. And it's one of the things I mentioned was like even the cast of every single voice actor, and I'm talking about their characters, all of the
Yes.
characters had a name to them.
Yes.
Not just
They
man one, man two,
no.
like oil rig guy three. Like everybody had a last name,
Yeah.
like a Scottish last name. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay. And what's cool is like you have settings
Hmm.
of subtitles of like it could be in Scottish
Yeah.
language
Yes.
too.
Yes.
It could be in straight up UK language. You can like even the subtitles. What's cool is you can have subtitles in American English. So if you don't understand certain slang,
Mhm.
so like basically the bull, it'll say, oh, that's total bull instead of like whatever they just said, but you can keep the dialogue the same, which is
And
insane. Like that's so much dedication to one story.
yeah, but that's the thing that's beautiful about storytelling from other
Yeah.
countries. We always forget the country you live in has a certain amount of stories on there. Like, oh, that's it. But when you understand there are other countries that are doing just as much, if not different content, like,
Yeah.
I've always said, this is not my phrase, but it's an old saying that, America makes movie stars, but the UK makes actors.
Yeah.
I mean, look at like as you just said, the Scottish creators have given Americans an idea of like how they speak and how they
And it was
experience
also
things.
it was also listed in the 70s too. So like you had 70s decor. Like it also was amazing because I think it was on Unreal Engine. It was one of the very,
Yes.
very realistic cinematics.
Yes.
It just felt like an actual thing. Like I watched that game get replayed on multiple players, like gaming people. And it was so cool like seeing everybody's reaction to the thing
Yeah.
because it's all different. And
Yeah.
it's Cthulhu based, like psychological horror too. So like you don't
Fun.
see that kind of thing anymore unless it's like the
No.
old school artistic. Like there is a Call of Cthulhu game, and it's
Yes.
very like Tim Burton-y when it comes to the style and stuff. But this is like a realistic, like folklore, like,
Yeah.
oh, did you hear about that thing that took over the oil rig in the sea kind of thing?
That's the thing.
Like
Like
that's what's so fascinating.
modern films is hard because we have plot armor built
Yeah.
into our modern society.
Yeah.
Google, goddamn phones.
Yeah.
Oh no, we can't. Oh, the phone is dead. I have a cell phone. Oh no, we can't figure out this, thing. Oh, I can just Google it real quick. It's fine. No problem, guys. Oh
Yeah.
no, like there's like all this modern stuff of like you like the kids were abandoned. Oh, they're chipped. They're fine. Like that's why I like the 80s and 70s because it was the Wild West in comparison.
That's why the last two big scripts that I've had, because it's folklore-ish and ghost story-ish, they are not of modern day.
No,
Like even my
because
book is 1920s.
yeah,
Yes, technically there's actually I found out there were flashlights back in the day, like really old school flashlights,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
stuff like that. Like I was looking at police cars and like how do you
Mhm.
do this? Because it's all through an investigator.
Yeah,
But I'm like, I don't like even in the radio drama, what
yeah.
happened? His phone was dying. There is no phone.
No,
There's
there's
an
no
old school
signal.
phone that might work, but he never got to it.
No,
And so it's like I would rather be like, you can't you can't give me an answer other than he needs to get out in his own way or else it's a problem. Because
yeah,
that happens still to this day. People will use their phones to the point where they are dead.
yeah.
Their chargers
It's
don't work properly. Their
my
car is freaking dead, so they can't even charge their phones in the car.
yeah. I mean, like the whole like
But
the
the whole
unreliable car
suspending
tropes. This
the
spending,
suspending of disbelief is
hmm,
becoming very much harder.
yeah, for
So
modern
that's
day
why you
stuff.
have to find things that work
Yeah, I mean,
for
like
the base of the
you have
story.
for me, if I were to write a modern day horror film, I would have to immediately destroy the tech. The tech
Yeah.
has to be like completely out of the picture. However that happens depends on the story that I'm trying to
Yeah.
tell. And that's what you have to
Literally no
do.
signal.
Literally nothing, nothing at all,
Or you
nada.
could be like one of the games, The Quarry, where it's like their phones are taken from them until the end
Hmm.
of the summer camp, and then they have
Right.
it's locked in a safe or something, and they don't know the
See,
code, like
that,
stuff like that.
yeah, I mean, I would like to see more of that because,
I think it's becoming a more resurgence of recently
yeah,
than it was in the last like 10 years.
I mean, like, I used to be like, oh, people would say, oh, all movies are the same. Da, 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 da. I'm like, no, that's not right. Blah, 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 But then I was like, they're making a new Jurassic Park movie. They're making another
And
Beekeeper movie. And I'm just like,
and
this
they keep
feels,
stringing out the Lord of the Rings stuff and stringing out
oh,
like they're trying to
yeah,
do a Harry Potter like TV series. I'm like, dude,
let it go.
I actually did you see that this was probably like a year or two ago now, but like they
Hmm.
were gonna do like a remaster of like Princess Bride and Carrie. It was like, please don't, for the love of God, please
Come
don't.
on, leave
So
things
like but
be.
that's but the entire living cast was like, don't. Like I would rather you like refresh, like rescreen the old one that everybody took like their time on and it's a
Yeah,
cult classic.
it is.
So but
It's,
no, that's what's insane, right, with
but
our industry is that because it's so rampant and because
yeah,
it's so changing, like if you're not
yes,
on the phone, if you're not 4K, if you're not on TikTok, if you're not on
right,
this,
right.
you have to find people that either understand, like that's why I've been connecting with people on
Hmm.
Instagram that are doing the same thing I'm doing, and it's not just
Yes,
random friends. And I have to disclaimer to them, I'm like, I'm just literally trying to network and have friends. Um,
yeah. And
but yeah,
what's nice about like us doing indie stuff is it's not perfect, it's not pristine. It is
yeah.
raw. It are mistakes built into the storyline, built and just built into the performances so that it is interesting because perfection is boring, flawed is fascinating.
And
And
it's fascinating to see like I used to like be so anal about how to film certain things.
yes,
And then
yes.
I'm watching people now and it's like they don't care that the camera is not on a tripod. They don't care that like
No,
the phone is being used for things. And so like I watch things for the sake of personality. If it's
yes,
something vlog related, if it's something content related, like I just care about the story that they're doing and if it's executed in such a way that's interesting, great. Like I will gladly
yes,
go with that. But the
yes.
stories, like I was harassing myself on the last radio drama until I listened to the first one. I'm like, oh my God, it's drastically different than the first one. And I didn't realize like how much we both grew
Yes.
on that style. But
I,
that's why you
that's what
find
happens.
people that like hype you up on your projects and hype you up on your successes. Like I even was talking to one guy, even just on the weight loss journey I've had in the last
Hmm.
2 years, and he's like, dude, that's so like motivating because I'm
Hmm.
trying to get back into X.
Yes.
You
And
have to find that tribe of people like
yeah.
on multiple aspects of your life, whether it's like whatever, but you also have to be the same person that's willing to, what do you call it, celebrate your victories in silence,
Yes. Yes. I mean,
because
because
nobody's going to understand what you're going through either.
no, 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 no. And you want to be around people that don't bring you down but lift you up. Your success is my success.
Oh yeah,
That's
of course.
something that I'm a very big proponent of. At the same
Hmm.
time, though, you also, like Snoop Dogg says, you gotta be willing to move on from your friends.
Oh yeah, you got to be willing to
You
let go of
you
certain people, but just because they're in in your past does not mean they are allowed in your future.
No, no. And I have trouble because sometimes, I'll have friends that are very big into what I'm doing, but they don't
Hmm.
always have the same trajectory as me. And it sucks because I feel like if I don't reach out to them, I'm never gonna have any friends again. And like I've been chasing this thing for over 22 years. And yeah, yeah, over 22 since I was 16. And people would say, "Well, why didn't you give up?" I says, "Just it makes sense to me."
Yeah, I mean
This this
it's not
whole
gonna it's
this
gonna work out in a way it needs to. Like even if it's not the way you expected it to, like dude, now
Mhm.
you have a podcast. You didn't
I
think
have
that was gonna be
podcasts.
a thing
No,
even a few years ago. Like we recorded it really early, but I
2020.
think it's kind of like I told my husband. My husband's been jumping between majors and different types of work. Like he was security, he did welding, he did
Yep.
economics. He's now an engineer.
Hmm.
And I told him like I'm kind of glad that you waited to be an engineer when you were in your 30s because I don't think you were ready at 18.
No, no. And what was really crazy is the other day, I was going through some old boxes and I found like just hundreds of arts and crafts that I did as a kid.
Hmm.
Like the little gluing and everything and the little
Hmm.
writing things. I'm like, why would what is the point of this? It's such a waste of paper.
Hmm.
But then I realized doing that stuff helped me develop who I am now,
Oh, my mom
which
still
is
has my
there.
paintings from painting one and painting three when I was at Mason, and I didn't
Exactly.
realize she still had them. But because she showed me my self-portrait that I had to use a mirror on, and I had the cloak, and I had my husband's like medieval sword that we have, and like stuff, and I remember painting that in the basement
Yes.
of where we were at the time, and it's just like it kind of flooded something in me of like who are the people who stood by you when you were doing this, who are the people who are standing by you now. Like I'm reconnecting with a lot of people from Virginia, but it's
Yes,
still not
yes.
the same
No,
as when we left, right?
no.
Because they all have their own lives, they're all whatever. And so that's
Yeah.
why I told my husband a couple days ago, I was like, look, I know we're in a tight spot right now and we're thinking about like potentially moving closer, but at the same time, like I don't care if we move to Alaska at this point because
Yeah.
at this point I'm living my life with you. If we
Hmm.
have friends, they will keep in connection with you. If they don't,
Yes.
you know, you don't have to visit somebody. Like if you came to my house
Hmm.
this week, like it would feel
Yes.
like I just talked to you yesterday
Yeah.
and I
Well,
just saw you yesterday, even though the last time I physically saw you was for Insight
no, it
or
was
yeah, it
called
was
in
either ins
blue.
no it no called in blue and the double
Split decision.
split decision. Insight was a different one,
That's right.
but
I wasn't part of that one.
that was that one was that was kind of a healing of my anorexia and body dysmorphia and stuff. And the girl who did it, she was so
Yeah, she was
amazing
great.
about it. And having
Sh-
guardian angels kind of thing. So, but it's
Yes.
just a thing of like you should be unapologetically you in front of people.
It's hard for me to do that
Oh no, it's
because
hard for everybody.
no, no,
I,
I get it, but like people don't understand like when you're a guy and you look like the way I do, you have to be extra mindful of things because of the social norms that
yeah.
people are used to. And a lot of people will argue like, "Oh, no, you should always be you." I'm like, "Okay, come into my skin for 24
Well, you've
hours,
also done
you
like the
know."
Muay Thai stuff too, and like everything. So like
But that
that's why you
doesn't
find your people
yeah, I mean, you
like
gotta
in your different aspects of life that understand all sides of you.
yeah, I mean, like I'm multifaceted in a lot of respects, and you even said it yourself, you got to find things that are outside of the craft that you
Hmm.
do just for you. My problem is that everything that I do kind of connects.
Oh no,
You
it still
know,
connects to you personally in some way. Like if I could go back into horseback riding, I'd do it. If walking has been like a new thing for me too. But like I have now started like reading, like genuinely reading in the last couple of years. That's why I'm um kind of following not like the book talk craze, but that's why I'm following indie authors and like, hey, do
Mhm.
you like reading next? Do you not like reading next? I realize I'm an in between of a lot of genres of things because I limiting people on
Right.
what they know how to do or what they like to do. But overall, like you kind of you grow, right? So
Yes.
like things that I liked in high school or even in my 20s might not really be into anymore.
Yeah,
I
and that's
love
okay.
figuring out who I am currently, and
Mm.
that's why I'm trying to make brand new friends that are in that space.
Yeah.
And then realizing, oh, I'm not trying to be that cool kid on the block. I just really want to like these people I'm really vibing with, and they just happen to be these people doing this, content, which is cool, you
Definitely.
know.
And it's important that you figure out who you are, why you are the way you are, and go from there. You
Yeah, I
know.
mean, I've also been looking at like how my life has been in the past,
Hmm.
like even with family dynamics and how do I react to people, and
Yeah.
I'm now figuring that out at 35 that
Hmm.
there's a reason why I react to certain things. And now that
Boundary.
I'm aware of it, it's like, okay, it's in my face. I now need to like accept that that's why that is, which is
Yeah.
very hard. So that's why when you pick friends and you pick people, they could be of the similar caliber. The biggest thing that I've noticed is that if you have somebody who's at least willing to sit and listen to you and like treat you like a human being,
Yeah.
that's going to be the most attractive thing to me as a person.
I completely understand. It's important to give yourself that time. I know that what was I gonna say? Boundaries. Boundaries are very important,
Oh
as
yeah.
an adult, and you learn those as you go on. But like I've always worried because if I did too many boundaries, I wouldn't have any friends at all.
Yeah.
And you gotta
And yet you got
also,
all the people you had and have
yeah,
currently.
you have to allow yourself the question of, is this boundary worth having over the friendship you could have? Are they willing to negotiate with you to be like to not do this certain thing with you? Like for instance,
Yeah.
I am not a fan of people putting memes after they say something that's like not helpful at all. Like for instance, so I asked someone like, "Hey, are you into marketing?" Like, "No, not really. My plate's kind of full. Sorry." And then gave like a sorry emoticon afterwards. I'm like, that's not helpful to me right now.
Yeah.
You know? It's just like it's one of those things that irks me. I mean, like I'd rather you just be like, "Yeah, dog, I'm sorry, I can't help you." End it. But then to
Yeah.
add that to it, I'm just like, it's like when
And
I
that,
was working and they were like, "I can't help you." Sorry. For me.
yeah,
Um,
and then you don't know if it's like that their way of coping either, or if
yeah,
it's just it's been so normalized for so long that you're like, okay. And it could
yeah,
also just be us like overthinking how texting works because
yeah.
I am like that all the time where I'm
Hmm.
like, somebody could say the simplest thing and I will be like, okay, how do they normally sound? Okay, that's how they normally sound. Well, the context of the conversation is this. Are they upset or are they not? That's why I've been getting, I used to be terrified of the phone, like
Yeah,
actually talking on the phone.
yeah,
I gotten over it when I had my live events job as well as my radio job, where you had to
yes.
just randomly talk to people. And then after, everything shut down and I'm alone a lot, like then you're like, no, I need to hear people's voices. I need to hear like people.
Human
And or even
interaction
this,
is the
like
key.
this is very
Yes,
normal for me. Like
yes,
I think this is like me and you actually hanging out, like if I
pretty
was at your
much.
house. Like
Yeah.
the only difference is I don't have food in my hand that I'm
No, no,
physically
you
getting
would
from your
that
mom or from you.
there's always gonna be food. There's always gonna be food. There's always gonna be coffee.
But
That's
that's
just
how
how it
it is
goes.
when you come over here too,
Yes,
right? So
absolutely.
like my space is always going to be like the place
Hmm.
where, and this is how I do with all my friends.
Hmm.
You are going to get hugs from me probably,
Yes.
especially if I'm that comfortable from you.
Hugs,
You
not
are going to get
drugs.
homemade food because
Hmm.
it's just the way of things.
It's how you do things.
Um,
I get it.
I also just love, I want people to feel welcome into my life. I
Yes.
don't want people feeling like they're threatened by me. I don't want them feeling like they can't, like, I've had random people. I don't know
Hmm.
if it's just my aura. I don't know if I told you this, but I don't know if you remember B.
Not really,
B
no.
from George Mason. He was a shorter guy. He had blonde
Oh,
hair. I think,
oh, B.
yes. So Brian.
Yeah,
So
I remember him very
so
well.
he was
My
very, very nice
drunken
to
kung
me.
fu master.
He was very nice to me, and he came up to me and he's like, you know, you're one of the first people that called me Brian, and I really appreciate it. I've had other people come up to me, tell me their life story randomly. I just met the person. They just
Yeah,
come up to me and tell me what's
yes,
going
they
on.
do.
And I've always kept that essence, vibe, aura, whatever you want to call it with me.
Yes.
But I know how it feels to be alone. I know
Yeah.
how it feels to not have somebody. I know how it feels to like do things all the time by yourself. It is just my nature. So like
Yes.
I would love to be the person again that wanted to be the person for the version of who needed somebody. So
Yes.
that's why home and the people I reach out to, I will always tell them like you're allowed to vent. I would rather you
Mhm.
vent than suffer in silence. You know, if you need advice, I can tell you it. Right. I don't care if it's technical. I don't care if it's life. I don't care if it's emotional. Because there are some people who genuinely just don't have that.
Yeah,
Why in the world would I back away from that?
makes sense
Like,
to
I
me.
can be as frustrated about your situation as you are.
Oh, yes, for sure.
And I am a very emotional sponge. So, like,
You
it
are.
will affect me to some degree where it's like, I will very much care about
Hmm.
emotional shifts in my environment.
For sure. For sure.
But that's why, like, I find the right people that are willing, like, not just for them to come to me, but also me coming to them.
Yeah.
Even if it's something silly, like I had a panic attack because I took the wrong turn and oh my God, and now I'm getting out of it. Like, because I know, like, all of what I'm doing is progress for myself, but I also understand the willing of letting go of certain people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you
Because
gotta
some of those
pay.
people will look at my life and your life and be like, oh, when you get famous, come call me. And you're like,
Oh,
excuse
I
me.
hate
Like,
that so
or
much
like,
where
oh, don't
like
forget the little guy. And I'm like, I haven't. The issue is you
no.
assume I'm not going to, but you could be talking to me now.
Yeah. You could just be a part of my life, period. And
Yeah.
what really annoys me is when I tell people I'm doing something. Like, "Oh, I've always wanted to do that." I'm like,
Then go do it
"Okay,
tomorrow.
gonna go do it." Well, what do I gotta do for this? I'm like, go to the stage, get a pen and paper. Like, but I want to be famous. I want to be like, look, look, there's two things. You want to be an actor, you want to be famous. There's a difference.
Yeah.
Okay? If you want to get to that part, you gotta do the first
Gotta
part.
do the
Don't
work.
put the cart in front of the horse. Every time I tell people I'm writing my first book, like, oh, that's so cool, man. How do I get mine published? I'm like, did you write it? What do you mean? Did you write the
Did you
book
write the
yet?
thing?
Is
Did you
it
do the
on
work?
paper? Is it in your laptop? That's the thing. I am procrastinating. I am 5 steps away from sending it out to my editor again, Alicia Waivers, shout out,
Hmm.
woo, to get my
Awesome
first
person.
draft. Right. She's a wonderful person. I really appreciate her. Because like the plan is this, I'm going to do all the edits, all the things she suggested on my own, put the new chapters in there in the order, send that to her. She's going to go
Hmm.
over it again. And then when I do that edit again myself, and then she reads it, then that will be the first draft. And the first draft will go to very people
Hmm.
that want to help me get it
Art
closer to
creed.
what exactly. So
Yeah.
I'm going to have this published by November 11th, my mom's birthday. That's the plan because, as you said, we got to live our lives, not just exist it. My mom
Yeah.
is going to be 72.
That's
And
insane, dude.
yeah, and
It's
she's,
crazy watching your parents get older.
yeah. So I wanted to be successful and okay before she leaves. And this is one step towards that. So that's the
But
plan.
I think the biggest thing from the takeaway from the last couple of conversations we've had and the last couple of episodes is like literally, like I know it's so hard. I've been doing this for the last year and a half. Very well, actually, since I quit my last job,
Mhm.
I realized it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
That's insane. 2 years has
Yeah.
gone by very quickly.
Yes.
Okay. I would much rather try the thing, look like a
Mhm.
total doofus, and be
Yes.
like, okay, cool, I at least had fun, right? Like, because
Yes.
there's sometimes on the podcast, I'm like, what am I talking about today? And you just find a thing like the whole reason the content creation thing is going to happen is because I am literally now talking to people who are kind of doing content creation on their own, but they have no film experience.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm still learning from them because they have the ring
Yes.
lights and they do certain things on
Hmm.
their phone. But I remember
Yep.
seeing one guy, he actually, I think he does do film. They're kind of
Hmm.
anonymous, but like one of the things they're like, how did you get the lighting? He's like, I got a really old phone, a bunch of lamps, and a lot of patience. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you. And so like there's part of me that's like this. So like at the end of the day, I don't care if you're doing a tech field, I don't care if you're doing whatever, like do not limit yourself to what you
No.
want to do out of life.
Yes.
Find the right people. And
Yes.
sometimes the right people won't show up until you start doing the new thing anyway, and
Yeah.
that's totally fine. I am just
Yeah.
now getting new people. I am also connecting with Vinny and a couple other people that I genuinely feel comfortable with because I know they'll give me the God's honest truth on things, but also be a cheerleader.
Yes. It's
I am not
important.
going to sit there and tell Vinny he needs to be the bee's knees and like, oh my God, you need to be perfect and whatever, because I know that the right people will find you,
Yeah. It
even through the rejections.
yeah. That's the key. You got to keep plugging away. That's the big thing. You have to just
Yeah.
keep trying. And the only way you're going to get better is if you trial and error it. And I think that like,
And
hmm,
and the other mentality I had, and I've had it since I was 18, but like when you, especially when you start a new thing or go to a new place or try a new chapter in life. When I was 18, I moved out of a small town in South Jersey. Now I'm in the middle of Virginia where there's thousands of kids at this school.
yep,
I'm like,
yep.
I can either open up and be myself in front of people and they get to know I exist, or I'm going to be alone.
Hmm. Yeah, you have to be willing to put yourself out there for friendship and otherwise. And it's true. You are as successful as the seven people you talk to the most or whatever.
Yeah.
And the thing
And you're
is,
allowed to ask for help
you
too.
are. That's the hardest part
Yeah.
for me. The people
That's
can
why
be.
I insert myself on your tech stuff.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. I'm grateful for that. Well, what I do is I read a lot more successful people to understand the secret of their
Mhm.
success because you're pretty much getting access to their brain, how they work and why they're successful, hear about their doubts. And I do the podcast because I want to learn about people's success, how they define it,
Yeah.
what do they do it, how do they get out of bed every day.
Give them a spotlight too of hey, they
Yes,
exist too, and you guys should go totally see them and
you should check them
hang out
out.
with
You
them
should
just as much
collaborate
as
with
I
them.
am. Yeah.
Yeah,
We are
it's all
genuine people
important.
behind this microphone, guys. Like we have lives, we have bills.
Yeah.
We're trying to make things work even when we have absolute horrible off days and
Oh,
like
yeah.
amazing celebration days because we kind
Mhm.
of have to.
Yeah, I mean, we always find
The
something.
balance.
That's the key. Life is balance. As Courtney put it, progress, not perfection. And
Yes. One step is progress.
what's funny is she always says, Vinny, when you make it big, I'm gonna ride your coattails. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing the same to you. And she says, no,
You're always like, oh, you're the one gonna make me famous. I'm like, all
that's
right,
right.
cool. I didn't realize that, but cool.
But you always say, I'm dragging you along if I'm gonna succeed. And I
Oh
say the
yeah,
same thing to
I'm
you.
gonna put credit where credit is due. I'm not gonna leave out people. Like if I
No,
accidentally leave out people, it is not intentional at all. It is literally because
no.
so much is happening
Mhm.
simultaneously. So
So
it's all
with
right.
that, yeah, with that being said, kids, this is Pulling Back the Curtain with Vinny Ali, a deep dive of the creative mind. You can find me on Spotify and YouTube. This is Courtney Adkisson, who's featured on Risen Fire Productions.
Yeah, so
And
it's
Courtney
Risen Fire
writes.
Creative is our LLC, but I'm on Instagram now. It's just my name now. I'll make sure Vinny has all the information and the links and stuff. I have Substack, so if you want to see blogging and stuff,
Mhm.
great.
And don't forget
I'm
Christopher
all over the
Shirk.
place. And Chris, yeah.
And
So
Chris
I'll
Shirk
definitely
is
have
on
his book out
Substack.
too. Yeah, if
Yeah.
you like fantasy, D&D, epic, vintage, like David Eddings stuff, like that is his book. Like it is fantastic. So,
Yeah.
and I'm
And
not just biased because I'm his wife and the editor.
not at all. No, 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 no. So yeah, this has been part three of catching up with Courtney. She's friend of the
Yes.
show. We'll bring her back again. And as I always
Oh
say,
yeah.
that
Call me
that does
anytime.
that which does not serve you does not deserve you. Be your own best friend. Remember, you can always be greater than you were yesterday. And we'll see you guys next time. Oh, and Steve, I'm gonna see you in the booth.
Yes, Steve. We'll see you in the booth. Bye.
Steve Bloom.